Imagine a world where the sun and the moon are not just celestial bodies, but living, breathing beings with their own personalities and stories. This is the world of the Inuit people, a world rich with myths that explain the mysteries of the sky. Today, we'll dive into one of the most fascinating of these tales. The story of Aningan and Malina, the moon and the sun. Pause, music softens. Before we begin, it's important to remember that for thousands of years, the Inuit people have lived in one of the most challenging environments on Earth, the Arctic. In such a place, where the land is shaped by extremes of light and dark, the sun and the moon take on immense importance. They guide the people through seasons, through the long cold nights and the short bright days. And so, their stories reflect the rhythms of life, the balance of light and dark, warmth and cold, day and night. Transition to storytelling tone. In the beginning, long before the sun and moon hung in the sky, Aningan and Malina were brother and sister, living on Earth in a small Inuit village. Malina, bright and radiant, was the elder sister, full of warmth and energy. She embodied the sun's light and life-giving power. Aningan, her younger brother, was quieter, more mysterious, with a certain coldness about him. He embodied the night, the calm and the cold that followed after Malina's vibrant warmth. Now, like many siblings, their relationship wasn't perfect. There was love, certainly, but also tension. Malina and Aningan were very different, and while their differences brought balance, they also caused conflict. Some say Aningan was envious of his sister's brightness, her warmth that seemed to light up the world. He, after all, had the quiet, dark hours of the night, but never the adoration that Malina's light brought. One night, during a gathering in the village, something terrible happened. Different versions of the story tell different details, but what is always clear is that this event drove a wedge between the siblings that could never be mended. Some versions say that Aningan tried to play a cruel prank on Malina, mocking her before the entire village. Others suggest that Aningan's jealousy led him to do something much darker, something that shamed and humiliated his sister deeply. In a rage, Malina fled from the village, running far away from Aningan, wanting nothing to do with him ever again. She ran and ran until she could run no more, and in her despair she rose into the sky, transforming into the sun. Her light became the source of life, something that could never be tainted by Aningan again. But Aningan, still full of regret, or perhaps still motivated by his jealousy, would not let her go. He followed her into the sky, transforming into the moon, beginning an eternal chase. From that moment on, the two were locked in an endless pursuit. Aningan would chase Malina across the heavens, but no matter how hard he tried, he could never catch her. To this day, the Inuit people say that this is why the sun and the moon are always apart, and why day turns to night. Malina, the sun, always moves just ahead of her brother, while Aningan, the moon, follows her path but never quite reaches her. Pause for reflection. Let's take a moment to think about the profound meaning behind this myth. In many ways, this isn't just a story about celestial bodies, but about human emotions, regret, guilt, and the idea of chasing something we can never truly have. Aningan's endless pursuit of Malina mirrors the feelings of longing and desire that are so universal. At its core, it's a story about separation, about the way relationships can break and the scars that are left behind. But the myth doesn't end there. There's a deeper layer to this chase. You see, Aningan's journey isn't just about movement. His phases, the waxing and waning of the moon, reflect his struggle. When the moon is full, he is strong, renewed in his pursuit of Malina. But as time passes, he grows weaker and thinner. In his obsession to chase his sister, Aningan forgets to eat. As the moon wanes, he becomes famished, growing gaunt and dim, and yet the chase never ends. Eventually, Aningan regains his strength, the moon fills again, and the cycle repeats. Transition to broader perspective. In this way, the story of Aningan and Malina also speaks to the cycles of nature, life, and time. Just as the moon waxes and wanes, so too do we go through phases of energy and fatigue, of fullness and emptiness, of hope and despair. Aningan's endless chase reflects the cycles that govern the world itself, whether it's the changing of the seasons, the rhythms of life, or the passage of time. For the Inuit people, these cycles were crucial to their survival. Living in the Arctic, where darkness can last for months during the winter, the return of the sun in the spring was a matter of life and death. The sun represented life, warmth, and survival. The moon, meanwhile, brought the calm of night, but also the cold, the challenges of surviving the long, dark winters. In this context, the myth of Aningan and Malina wasn't just a story, it was a way to understand and relate to the forces that shaped the world around them. Tone softens, more introspective. Even today, the story of Aningan and Malina resonates deeply. We may now have scientific explanations for the movements of the sun and the moon, but the human emotions at the heart of this myth are timeless. Who among us hasn't chased something or someone that we could never catch? Who hasn't felt the pangs of regret for something lost, the yearning to undo a mistake, the longing to repair a relationship that's been broken? In this myth, we can see ourselves in both Aningan and Malina. In Aningan, we see the restless pursuer, driven by guilt or desire, unable to move on. In Malina, we see the one who runs, seeking distance and escape, determined never to be caught. Together, their story teaches us about the delicate balance between closeness and distance, between light and dark, and the ways in which we are all connected, even when we are apart. The Inuit people have long lived in harmony with the natural world, and their myths reflect this deep understanding. The sun and the moon, in their endless chase, are a reminder of the cycles that govern all life. They are also a reminder of the importance of balance, how light and dark, warmth and cold, day and night must coexist in order for life to thrive. As the sun rises and sets, and as the moon waxes and wanes, we are reminded of the eternal dance of Aningan and Malina. The sky becomes not just a backdrop for our lives, but a canvas on which their story plays out again and again, night after night, day after day. And so, the next time you look up at the sky and see the moon following the sun, remember the story of Aningan and Malina. Remember the chase, the phases of the moon, and the balance of light and dark that governs our world. Remember that this ancient story, passed down through generations, connects us to a time when the stars held secrets and the sun and moon were more than just distant orbs in the sky. They were living beings, full of life, love, and loss. Thank you for joining me on this journey into Inuit mythology. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more stories from cultures around the world. Until next time, look to the sky and remember, there's always a story waiting to be told.